Well, before we get started, can you introduce yourself to the people that are listening or maybe meeting you for the first time? Like myself, I'm meeting you for the first time.
Which is wild that we've never met before.
I know, because it is a small industry, and I feel like we've played really close in orbit with each other. You were at Digital for a bit too, weren't you?
I was at Digital for 3 years.
So do me a favor, introduce yourself, and then let's get after it.
Absolutely. Rhea Williams. I got into this wild world via the commercial real estate, which I think a lot of us did. But didn't
really
know what a data center was. And then started working with someone who was doing some brokering and needed somebody with the real estate background to look at leases and things like that.
Shut up. How cool is that?
I didn't know anything. I mean...
I still don't, so that's fair.
Well, yeah. When I was first described that, the internet runs underneath the ocean in subsea cables, I was like, get out.
Well, hold on. Where are you from, Rhea?
California, born and raised.
Well, what part? Because California's like 2 different states.
3, I would say.
Yeah, you know what? I would agree with that now too, because you have the whole breadbasket in the middle, and then you have the crazy towns up top, and then you have the
we maintain that the Central Valley is its own.
It really is. Yeah. So what part are you from, though? You're from Northern California.
Born up near Tahoe.
Oh, beautiful.
And then was in Santa Cruz for high school. Moved to Southern California for 14 years, and was in San Diego and LA. So I did 5 years in LA, and I say that like time because it is.
Were you in real estate then?
No, I was in fashion. I worked downtown in the Cooper building at a multi-line showroom.
All right, so listen, we're going to unpackage a lot of this story because, look, I want to understand how someone that went to high school in Santa Cruz and got into real estate and fashion ended up becoming a big player in this industry, right? And it's important because, I mean, did you have a you to listen to? If you had a podcast that you could listen to when you started your career and they had a background and it was someone like a you, would it have helped you?
Of course it would help me.
So that's what we want to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's use these microphones to reach as many people as we can. I have a daughter, right? And I need to have 16.
Fantastic.
She's fantastic. She got in an accident in one of my cars yesterday. So
no. Is she okay?
Sadly, yes. She's fine. No, she's great. And it's all that counts is whether or not she's okay. But it's like every one of your kids at some point has to wreck one of your cars. She was the only one that hadn't wrecked any of my cars yet. So, well, do you have kids that drive yet?
Not yet.
Yeah. Well, small kids, I'm not going to say small kids are small problems and big kids are big problems, but they definitely scale. Challenges scale.
I'm getting there. So I have he will be 14 on April 17th. He's bigger than me.
How tall?
Which isn't saying much.
Yeah.
He's about 5'5", hasn't quite hit his growth spurt yet. So we're still waiting. But I bought him a Super 73. So I bought him one of those big fat tire electrical bikes.
Okay.
We live on a hill. It's not far to school, but it's a rough, steep ride. So bought him that so he could get around. I didn't realize I was buying my child a motorcycle. He 100% rides a motorcycle. So I make him wear a full face helmet.
Sure.
And he lives on that thing. I never see him.
Freedom.
But it definitely, it's a little scary.
Yeah, 14 though, you want him to be like that, right? So that's awesome. But so when you were, tell me a little bit more. Are you the youngest of a bunch of kids? Are you the only child?
I am an only child.
Okay. And then when you were younger, did you have an aspiration to get into fashion? Is that what it was?
It went all over the place. But yeah, I think that was ultimately the goal. I started out as a musical theater major.
For real?
And then went into art history, and then dropped out, and then ended up working for a friend who owned a showroom as an assistant and worked my way up to managing the showroom.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then how did you go from, was that must have been in Southern Cal?
That was downtown LA.
Was that cool?
Oh, it was every little girl's dream. So we had a showroom in LA, we had one in New York, and then I managed the one in Dallas as well. So I was at New York Fashion Week. I got to go to London Fashion Week. 5 times a year you get a new batch of samples and clothes, and you get to try everything on and wear it all. And it was ridiculous. It was great. We were schlepping stuff all over the world.
What made you leave that?
I got married and had a baby.
Oh, okay. So did you go with the stay-at-home route at first, or was it a career shift?
I stayed at home for 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And that's actually when we moved back up to Northern California where my parents were.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I made the shift into real estate.
Your family was back in are they still in Santa Cruz?
Still are, yeah.
I do like Santa Cruz.
It's good.
What's that highway you get to from Los Gatos? I used to live in Los Gatos. Did I ask you this last time we talked?
No, it's just everyone asks.
It's a dangerous road.
Yes, Highway 17.
Yeah, it's like the death road. It's cool though. It's a beautiful view.
It's a beautiful drive.
You get stuck on a bad day though.
I got stuck, so I missed my flight out here because I got stuck on it.
Yeesh.
It's fine. there was another flight 2 hours later. But yeah, you get stuck on 17. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah. When did you get in? Last night?
I actually flew to Denver on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
And then here from Denver yesterday.
That's an easy flight then, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So you keep going. I keep interrupting you.
I don't know, where was I? Oh, fashion, got married.
Yeah. She came up
moved to San Diego.
And then when you
had a baby. And then we moved to be closer to my parents, back up to Northern California. There is no fashion industry. There was no
that's tough.
job there. So I went into real estate.
Okay.
And wanted to
commercial?
Started in residential, wanted to pursue more commercial because helping people buy and sell their homes is not any fun for me. It's the biggest financial decision that most people personally make. It's very emotional. And I wanted to get out of the sort of emotional side of it and work more in commercial and work with people who are making financial decisions.
Did you know anybody that was doing that yet?
No.
Did, like, you have friends like Christina Metzger at CBRE or some,
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
No. And then.
So you just knew you wanted to do it?
Just knew I wanted to do it.
So how'd that go?
It went great because I ended up here. So I had a friend who had actually worked for QTS in sales and had been really successful, and then started his own kind of private brokerage, sort of like a CBRE that they function that way, or a JLL, but doing it on his own as a channel partner, and brought me in. And
how long ago was that?
Over 10 years.
And is that person still in the game?
I think they're still in the industry.
Do you run into them at all, or
no, not at all. They moved across the country.
So you started your career in this industry from Santa Cruz, working for a spin out or something that was in orbit around QTS at some capacity.
Channel partner of the industry, yeah. So worked with QTS and digital, and
so you could rep any of their stuff, like
any
other
agent? Stuff, yeah, as an agent, basically.
How was it?
I mean, I learned so much. I had no idea how any of this worked. I didn't know what a data center was. I didn't know any of the electrical components, and basically said to him when I started, like, I'm happy to help out. I don't know if I'm going to dig this. This is so far outside my wheelhouse. But it turns out, as an architect's daughter, I was fascinated by the electrical architecture of it, how things get powered, how it works, what a UPS is, what it does. And I dug it. I got into it. And from there, formed a couple of relationships at Digital, and they were hiring somebody to run kind of customer service for their salespeople.
Did you go work for Shap?
I did.
I've worked for Shap. I love Shap. Let's back up real quick. When you were doing that, what was the market like 10 years ago? If you can, like, what were the deal sizes? Were they less than 500 kW rack? If you were doing work with Digital, you were probably doing above 500 kW.
So
not 500 kW per rack, but
right.
Like the deals, I remember when
10 kW.
Yeah, that's
which was two
small
racks.
Deals. Yeah, all in. Right?
All in.
Yep.
And the margins on those were insane. So you're making like 15% of, the monthly on that. Yeah, if you did 100 kW, 200 kW, that was a nice check.
You had a good quarter too.
That was good. Yeah. That was
like megawatt was a quota, and now they don't even pick their teeth with that, right?
Yeah. So when I was at Digital, I think quotas, because I do it based on GAAP accounting, is a little bit different. You basically, if you did a megawatt a quarter, you were golden. You were rolling.
Damn. All right. So, and don't let me keep bothering you as you're on your roll here, but I do want to go back because I want to understand it. I think it's really important for others to understand. There's women that are listening right now. There's men that are listening right now that maybe they're in the same version. They're trying to figure out what it is, and they're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be into this. And all of a sudden they discover that they are into this, right? And there's some people that they're trying this industry out right now. Remember? And you don't really fall in love with this industry day one. It takes a little bit of time before you feel comfortable, right? Would you agree?
I'd say it took me till now.
Stop.
It took a decade.
Now
I'm not kidding. The way that I feel now and how I navigate through things is so differently than I did back then. It felt so big and huge and intimidating, and the vernacular and the terminology and all of our goddamn acronyms, and it felt unsurmountable to me at a certain point. But you chip away at it. How do you eat an elephant? And met a lot of really wonderful people who've helped me along the way.
I was like, you have some mentors along the way.
Absolutely. And caught a lot of lucky breaks that I ran with. My transition from that small brokerage into working for Digital was a huge jump.
Yeah.
Huge.
So tell me a little bit about that, because I interrupted you when I was just figuring out if it was Shap. But I bet you that's the first time I heard your name is through him at some point, and
Hi, Andrew.
yeah. But he's had a large impact on a lot of people, right? And some of the mentors that have even mentored him have had a large impact on me and a lot of other people in this industry. And it's amazing to see where some of these people come from, right? So when you went to go work for him at Digital, what was that like? Because Digital was a monster back then. I mean, not that they're not now, but
those days were fun.
They're a different machine altogether.
That was a good time. That group of people, that particular group that I worked with, I think was really, really special. So I got brought in to support the sales team. So when they had an account, I would then run and manage the sort of day-to-day so that they could be on the sales end and not doing,
Global account management is one of the most critical elements of a business, right? Someone has to maintain the relationship. That's the most important part of the relation. The whole thing is based on a relationship. Someone has to maintain that relationship and keep it cultivated all the time.
100%. And deal with the ins and outs and the accounting and the, details.
And it's really hard because Digital is a portfolio-based group too, right? So like you had to like really manage it at an asset level, didn't you? Like what deal constructs you would have may be different in one market over the other.
Not in that role. In that role, I was given a handful of accounts, which spread across most of the West Coast directors. So I supported Brent Buckles.
Oh yeah, Brent, he's awesome.
Ty Miller.
Another stud.
And Kevin Shanahan.
I don't know him. I only know of him through reputation, and it's all been in reverence, right? So I don't think I've met him before.
We miss him. He passed away.
Oh, okay. Oh, is he the one? Okay, well, that's why I never met him.
We miss him dearly.
Yep. Okay, so that would explain that. I remember when that happened because I remember all my friends from Digital were distraught, right?
Yes, very. That was devastating to lose Kevin. But those three people, to support them and how much they were doing and what they were doing and how talented they are and how brilliant they are and how insane they are. And I love them for that very, very much. They're family at this
awesome.
point, I call Brent Uncle Bucks. He's dear to me. And I think those relationships, and Gabby Ashoni as well. So Gabby was there. I wasn't particularly supporting her at the time, but then I ended up on that team. And she's one of my nearest and dearest.
How long were you at Digital for?
3 years. And so
That's a lot in this industry.
Reported to Shap.
I got you.
Yeah.
Was he a tyrant?
No, not at all.
We'll edit it out if you want. Kidding, Andrew. So when
Shap is a lot of things, and tyrant is definitely not one of them.
He's fine. Did you get moved into a couple different capacities and roles there? Were you able to get exposed to a lot of things?
I did. So apparently I did a good job because I started in, I believe, July. And by January, I'd been moved to sales director.
Oh, wow. Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah. And I think that the CRO at the time...
What was his name? Matt
Majewski.
Yeah.
He saw potential, and I think that he knew they needed some diversity on the team, and
it helps.
He put me on the elevator, not the stairs. It was a huge jump in my career to move to be suddenly peers with all of those people that I just mentioned.
So your first opportunity to be in this industry is with one of the top 2 biggest data center operators in the world. And that was a time in which they were just exploding in growth, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It was an incredible time probably. So you could probably never have picked a better time. Like,
it was so serendipitous.
Right.
I know there's so much grace involved. I mean, yeah, I worked my ass off, but there's so much grace involved.
You travel a lot back in those days?
Yeah, we did. But it was mostly US based. I was living in Phoenix. I had eBay and PayPal. I was based in the Bay Area, but I had eBay and PayPal and Expedia and most all the clients that were in that Chandler facility. So I was living out of a suitcase in the Westin downtown Phoenix.
I lived in Chandler, right down the street from you is where Cyrus One was building that data center. So I was down there. But in that time, when you got into the industry, and I'm going to go back and forth into some of the IM women stuff that you have too. Feel free to thread it in if you see it. But like back then there was no IM women's. What was there that you felt other than your brothers or your, like Uncle Bucks or type of thing, but like Where were you going in that early stage of your career to get help? Were there other ladies that were luminaries that were blocking and tackling for you at that time? Were there dudes that were doing it?
There were and are men in this industry that I consider advocates.
Sure.
That absolutely have done that. But from a female standpoint, I didn't have a whole lot of.
Was it just because there wasn't a lot still?
There wasn't a lot still. I didn't know them if there were. Just personally didn't have that relationship. But I had Gabby, and she and I had and have each other's backs, and absolutely always will. And I think it's interesting because we're both pretty strong, independent women who have a voice and aren't afraid to use it, that everyone assumed that we wouldn't like each other, that there would be that
you guys
catty,
are two alphas.
Right, that there would be that weird, catty, competitive. Absolutely not. And there never was. We recognized a partner in each other immediately, and we've been friends ever since.
I think that's fantastic. What's she doing now? Is she still a digital?
No, she's senior vice president of sales for Prime Data Centers.
Oh, no kidding. Good for her.
That's right.
All right, so I don't think I've met her before, but I do know a lot of the folks over at Prime. They got some good people over there. So when you were doing this, you guys collected each other because you couldn't afford to be catty with each other anyway if you wanted to. There wasn't a lot of women still, right? I mean, there's not a lot of women now still.
I think that there are verticals that have more women in them. Right. So the marketing team tends to have more women in it.
Oh, I got you.
There are verticals. The EAs are usually women. So there are definitely verticals that have more women in them.
I don't think that that's indicative of anything other than you're not going to like a lot of. I could understand that is what I'm saying. Like,
oh yeah, I do too. But I think when we talk about this industry as a whole, and one of the things I'm trying to do with this next and the newest I Am Women chapter meeting in San Francisco, we've never done one before, is to get out of all of our group meetings to be attached to a conference. Conferences are fantastic, and I love the camaraderie that we build at those conferences.
Sure.
But the women in marketing and the EAs and the women in finance don't go to conferences.
Ooh. Good
right?
call.
So in order to support each other in this industry, we need to go across all of the verticals in this industry to talk about the diversity and inclusion that needs to be there.
Good call.
Because it is still male dominated. And the verticals that get the most attention tend to be male dominated. So really want to make sure we start reaching out to everybody.
So how do we do that? When you say we, I mean, is that guys? Is it girls? Is it both of us? And I mean, honestly, we'll put as many wood behind the arrows as we can for you, but we don't know how to resonate with. I wouldn't know how to go resonate and recruit some of these women. I don't think that they would find validation and safety and an opportunity through a dude like me. They would need it through a person like you, right?
It takes all of it.
Well, I think I want to unpack how we could help in those things, right? But I keep taking you off. I want to share your story, but I also am trying to understand what the landscape looked like in the industry at that time. Because if you've been in this game for 10 years and you're a woman, and this is a hard industry for a man, let alone a woman, right? So
yeah.
So you have to have. We all have developed scars and lessons and calluses on us as we evolve, in spite of or because of. I've learned to never really get upset over any specific incident of failure that I have, because if it wasn't that, it was going to be something else. It's just, I have to learn, I have to grow, and only do that.
My whole career is failing upwards.
I love that. That's failing forward is my favorite phrase, right?
Yeah, the whole career.
So when you were at Digital, you were there for 3 years, you said, and Gabby was your rock, and the two of you were trying to navigate in this heavily male-dominated industry to figure out what was it like for you? Did you have any concerns at all, or did you have enough ride or die people around you where you're fine?
I mean, I think that through my sales leadership, through Ty, through Andrew, we felt tremendously supported. I think that Susie Gleason came in towards the end of that, and she's a powerhouse in this industry, and certainly as a woman and one of the founders of WTF.
Okay.
I definitely started to go to more conferences and branch out more and try and meet more women. And that's definitely been a big help, but that took years.
What was the first women's group that you guys all began to coalesce around? Was it iMasons women's?
No, the first one was WTF.
Okay, so for people that don't understand, that's the Women's
Tech Forum.
All right.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that. I don't know enough about
unintended.
it. Okay. All right, so we're not supposed to know about it. Okay, like the Women's Tech Fund Forum, like how old is that? And when did that start? What's it all about?
I think, I don't know how long ago that was. I want to say 5 years, maybe a little bit more.
Was it pretty cool? I mean,
it was fantastic. So Bryn Fowler was one of the founders, right? And as well as Elena, whose last name is,
I do remember the Women Tech Forum now.
Yeah, is escaping me, and Sarah McComb with Susie. They started the Women's Tech Forum, and that was the first instance where I'd really seen an all female gathering.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
What'd they do? Where was that?
The first one I went to was in digital, was in the old office, which was Embarcadero 3, the nicest office I've ever had, will ever have.
That view is incredible.
The view, the main conference, marble conference table in the main conference room where you're out there, and if you look out, you can see the Blue Angels when they go by. And
that view is incredible. Like I literally had coffee with Bill Stein yesterday.
Yeah.
And I thought it was for Embarcadero, but I'm like,
it is for Embarcadero.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm like, how did you know? Like that's where you wanted to put the HQ. And he's like, I'd been in that building before at a different company. He worked in that building when he worked for a different company, and he knew that view. So he's like, we're coming back. Like, obviously when they arrived at where they're at, he's like, that's what I wanted.
We used to have our sales meeting every Monday morning at 9 a.m. And because I was coming from Santa Cruz, I'd leave really early.
Sure.
Because that traffic, it's better now, but back then, could have taken me 2 hours to get in at least.
Of course.
So we'd get in really early, and Steve Kundich at the time,
of course, had
the southeast corner office, and so we would all go into the break room, which was amazing, and get coffee and whatever, and then watch the sunrise over the Bay Bridge from Kundich's office.
Ridiculous. That view is ridiculous. I asked him, I'm like, do you miss it? He's like, yeah, that was a tough one.
We all miss it.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
No. I loved having meetings there just so I could be in that office. So the Women's Tech Forum started, and that was the first group that you got to kind of...
It was the first one that I was aware of, yeah. And I'm sure there are others, and maybe something that started before.
Did you need one at that time? Did you feel like there was a lack, or there was something
missing? There's still a lack.
So, okay, I agree, but like, what are we doing about it?
So what that was able to do, and what we're also trying to do with iMasons Women, obviously, is bring education, awareness, camaraderie is what it's given me more than anything. I think the value that I've seen is being able to be introduced to and meet so many different women in so many different roles, right? Within what we do, women in construction. There are women sales engineers that I would never have met otherwise. But also, when we have that camaraderie, what it does is it allows us, when we are in a room 90% men, I can look over and lock eyes with somebody that I know, that's a woman that I know, and we can support each other, have each other's backs. You feel a little bit safer in a room. It changes the conversation. We can have conversations with each other that are a bit more inquisitive and like, how did you manage this? How do you deal with this? That's just different from talking to men. I think giving each other that foundation of support is so important. And also, when we do go to these functions, I now get to hang out with a bunch of women. I have female friends. My closest friends are women in this industry.
Yeah, I have a lot of my best friends were in this industry. But when you guys were coming together, is it, like you said, you call it verticals, I think, but I look at this industry as though it has 9 different job domains that represent 265 different jobs. And within those job domains, you have leaders, right? And each of those leaders has something that's different or unique to them. Like you said, I think that you were talking about sales people or revenue people, but I mean, the pursuit of revenue, I mean, the culture of any business is the backbone of that business, but the life's blood is the revenue that flows through it, through the pursuit of revenue. And you're talking about engineers, but there's, like you said, there's marketing, there's human resources, account management. There's a lot of different domains within this group.
The design and construction, we forget that we're a huge construction industry, right?
And design.
The fiber side of the business, the networking side of the business, which I still think is magic.
But there's a lot of powerful people, powerful women in those things. Mm-hmm. And each one of them, something matters most to each one of them. If you're the chief revenue officer, we know what matters most to you. If you're the chief financial officer, we know what matters most to you. But there are lots of subdomains within those domains of jobs where you have like staff augmentation, could be construction management, project management, like you're talking about. But I'll be honest, we staff a fair amount of safety people, because that's the number one KPI. We do a lot of safety. We do a lot of scheduling. We do a lot of QA/QC. We do a lot of those things because there's so much pressure on on these programs now, not just because of the volume and velocity, but because of the date-related motivation to have it done, that you're injecting a lot of risk into these programs. And that's why there's a lot more attention on safety and schedule and QA, QC. And the hyperscalers are the ones that really drive those and pioneer those things. But at these events that you hosted, or what they're doing it at Women's Tech Forum, or what you're doing at iMasons, or how we can help contribute with our platforms, is how do you open it up to the people that are maybe not operating at the senior level or the executive level or a management level even? Maybe they're only been in the industry for a year or two. And like you said, they don't get to go to these conferences.
Yeah.
So there's other ways to kind of maybe have an outreach to them. But what are some of the topics? Are they topics that could only be discussed because men aren't around sometimes because you want to have it from their perspective? Is it, or are you teaching, hey, you've been in this game for 10 years. You've seen a lot. So when a new woman comes in and she's got, that 10 years of youth and ambition and let's agree that the industry has evolved quite a bit since when we all first started, 10, 20 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have guidance for them on what to avoid? Is there like intentional, deliberate, like talk tracks that you have for them that allows them to harmonize a little bit? How do we, to create a platform is one thing. That's easy. We have that. We can do that. But I don't even know how to help advance a conversation or what those conversations need to look like, right? Are they really focused more on design? Because that's easy. Those same conversations that dudes have. Or is it more like, hey, ladies, if something happens to you in this industry and this happens, if you need help on how to manage it, I host a conference once a year. I don't think you've been to DCAC before, have you?
I have not yet. This will be my first, and we're bringing I Am Women. It's going to be a good time.
All right, I can't wait. And there's going to be some other really cool women things that we're doing. I have an incredibly powerful COO who has probably been one of the greatest impacts on leadership that I've had in my career in the last 4 or 5 years. And she's injecting a lot of her own passion, which I'd imagine you guys would get along just fine, because she also has an opinion, right? She's got a lot to give back to everybody as a leader, but she also wants to help create more leaders. And I think that she understands that there's an incredible amount of power that women bring to management and leadership teams in general by de-escalating the pride and the ego, or they also bring balance. They remove a lot of emotion from the things that we do, and they do a better job, I think, sometimes of just bringing us back to true objectivity.
Isn't that interesting that women are the ones that bring the objectivity, and it's not?
It's not.
Well, and I think we need to remove this sort of ancient thinking that women are too emotional to be in leadership roles, or bring that emotionality to it, when often it's actually the opposite.
Well, let me tell you this. I've been in this game for a bit. I don't hear any dudes that I go trekking with, and I go trekking with some of the dudes I think that are pretty, some of them can move the needle in this space. I don't ever hear any of them talking about how women are emotional. We need to worry about them. In fact, I think there's a more reverence than you can imagine. I think that there's a lot of us that have realized too that we've reached limitations in how capable we are without balance, and balance has to be injected with some feminine power. Like, you need someone who can speak truth to power to us.
Well, I think it's women, it's any diversity of thought.
Yes.
Right.
I
So
agree.
If I hire a team and my team all thinks exactly the same way I do and has the same background as me, what's the point? I could do it myself.
We got to be aligned, but they don't always have to agree.
There's a difference between alignment and no, I don't want everybody to agree with me all the time. In fact, please disagree with me. I'm wrong a lot. But having the diversity of thought and background and ideas, and how people enact different things, how people deliver on different things we've just seen it makes you more profitable. It makes you more successful. It's the reason to do it isn't because it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. The reason to do it is because it works.
I think the reason to do it is because the value it brings. Mm-hmm. Like, we hit a plateau as a business until I brought on an EA to help me. And she came from a real estate background. It was her first job in this industry. And I'm probably the last person to start your industry career off of working underneath, right? Because I'm a fucking dumpster fire half the time because I'm in a startup mode, right?
I think I just kicked you.
No, you're fine. And this lady who just learned, I think that what happened is something switched, and she realized that she was safe around us. And when that happened, she used her voice a lot. And we found that, like, this isn't a member of our management team, but she was sitting as my proxy in a lot of these meetings, or, helping me facilitate the aftermath of those meetings.
Right.
And then her voice grew. And I was like, man, that impact at that altitude and airspeed was profound. What would happen if I added a trained leader, a really good leader that knows, irregardless male, female, but a really strong leader that has a passion for growing that balance?
Mm-hmm.
And I found one. She's former military. She speaks a bunch of languages. Did you ever speak to Carly yet on our phones?
Yeah, we spoke. We had a meeting.
Yeah, you were going to be on
that's who I spoke to about the event that we want to do at DCAC.
Perfect. She's the right one for you guys to engage with, because she'll block and tackle all day. But like, when we started engaging, just she and I, before she came to work for us, she was de-escalating me in a lot of ways, to where like I would just call and have an emotional garage sale basically for 45 minutes. And then she'd be like, how can I help you? Right. And then eventually,
I like that term. I'd have an emotional garage sale.
And she would laugh like you do right now. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not laughing with me. She was laughing at me, as
100%.
you are. And it's okay, because we needed that. I needed that. And I was like, okay, so what is the answer? She's like, I don't know. Did you ask? And she just will ask me the stupid questions that are the right ones. And finally I'm like, all right, bye, click. And then we would talk a few weeks later. And I realized how big of an impact I was having as a team, as a byproduct of just talking with her. So I was like, what would it take to get you to just immerse yourself right here? She speaks a bunch of languages. She's a translator, an interpreter, which is what leadership is having the ability to bring in what everybody's talking about and how to, kind of aggregate that information and then
100%.
And then send it back in a way which everybody has the right balance of understanding on, right? Because everyone's going to do what matters most to them. And she did such an incredible job that I would credit, like, we're a completely different company since I found that, right? And I discovered it, and it wasn't like I was trying to avoid women for any reason. There just wasn't a lot of women to choose from. I just, for whatever reason, there's just not a lot to discover or accidentally find themselves here. I mean, even your way of getting here was everybody's journey to get here, I think, is really important. And that's what I wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, I think that there are plenty of women. I think there's plenty of everybody.
What do you think the ratio is right now in this industry? 1 to 10?
No. I mean, that are out there, that are capable, that are able to fulfill these roles. I think a lot of the times I hear from hiring managers, well, I wanted to hire a woman, but, nobody applied. There is that. You have to do a better job of going out and looking for that. But I think that we have to look at how we hire people differently and why we hire people differently. So I think that we're starting to turn and learn about soft skills. And I think that we're starting to learn and hire not on what someone's already done, but based on what somebody's actually capable of being really good at. And those are two totally different things.
So I think we're in alignment. I feel that what you just mentioned was like what they've done, like experience doesn't matter in this industry as much as it used to.
Right.
Because we reinvent ourselves so aggressively in this space. And I'm not really a big fan of talent anymore either, right? Because there's a lot of fucking talented people out there, and they still don't know how to play in the sandbox well with others. There's a lot. This industry does not lack in genius and intelligence.
For sure.
And so I don't really even like talent. I hire only on one thing now, and that's personality. I think we're talking the same thing, the character. That are they creative enough to work themselves out of a difficult situation? And what I've learned is only people that have had profound pain and suffering in their life, maybe up to and including the point in which they've had to visit their own mortality, like a combat veteran or someone with cancer or whatever. Maybe you've lost someone that you care about, and that's close enough you got to be to understand how precious life is. They tend to focus on the things that matter most after that. Do you agree?
I certainly don't disagree.
I think that there's an aperture that exists for people that want to be in this space. I think that we have a hard time recruiting for two reasons. One, this is an industry that is not mainstream yet. And because of that, we're competing against all the mature industries that kids grow up thinking about they're going to do to be wealthy, successful, make a living, be happy.
Right. No little kid is like, I want to grow up and be in data centers. Unless their mom or dad or aunt or uncle or whomever works in data centers and they have that representation and they already understand the industry and what it is. I want to go back a little bit, though, of what I was talking about with soft skills and capability.
Okay.
It's not just that passion and endeavor and the hard work and the personality. I also think it was described to me once, and I love this representation. Someone was hiring a project manager, right? Who needed to be able to multitask in a really profound way, do a million things at once. And she hired a military wife because she could move a house in 4 days.
Sure.
Hired somebody who had the skills to do all those different things, but they'd never been applied in a professional way.
So when you said we have to do a better job of recruiting, what do you suggest? What do you recommend?
I mean, if I had that figured out,
Yeah, well, look, I'm trying
it's outreach. It's exactly what we're doing right here. It's more events. It's more education. It's starting younger. I think the university level is great, but I think it's also a little bit too late. I think that you're right. This industry isn't mainstream yet, but it's about to be.
It will be soon. But I do think too, do you feel like it's equal? Like in terms of we both share the same capability of making an impact on recruiting women?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you think there's no advantage of being another woman recruiting for this industry versus...
I think that I have a different impact.
All right. So...
But I don't think I have any more advantage recruiting over...
Well, we kind of understand how it works based on the model that exists today. And a lot of that, I mean, I don't know what those models are. I don't know who leads those recruiting efforts, but I could tell you that we're 300,000 people short in this industry. And what I was just talking about in the last podcast is we're also...
I think it's more than that.
Well, if you think about the profound risk that's, really existential beyond that is how many years you've been in this industry? 10.
Mm-hmm.
But think about half those people that you rattled off, like Buckles or Shap but at some point, what have they been in this industry? 10, 20 years? This industry started in the late 90s?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have adjacent backgrounds, right? Who came from telecom or who came from
most people.
Military of naval backgrounds. And so, that translates really well into a lot of what we do.
But a lot of the people that were here 20, 25 years ago that helped start it, a lot of them will begin sunsetting, right? So you'll see some of the big dogs that we were talking about earlier offline. Traditionally, when a new industry is pioneered, those that founded it leave and become part of governance. They set policy. They try to find ways to implement ethics into the industry to allow it to grow more mainstream. That's the only way to reduce the unintended consequences of the things that we're making, the decisions we're making today in this industry, is to have a governance body that's looking down at that with some form or semblance of experience that says, hey, we shouldn't do that. Like, think of the way that we master planned Virginia for data centers and how it's meatballed all around, right? And then you have quantum loopholes like, let's just do a master campus for it. 2,000 acres, all master planned for one purpose instead of meatballing 2,000 acres of patches here and here and here.
Right. So I think a couple of things on that. I think that the powers that be running ethics and governance scares me a little bit because I don't trust all those people.
Shouldn't. Why would you?
I also think that the master planning, that's exactly what I'm starting to do. So we're getting into and talking exactly about what my new company, E3, is doing. It's not just large volumes of power. I mean, we're talking about multiple gigawatts, but we're talking about doing a master planned digital infrastructure park. So we're talking about thousands of acres that has data center as an anchor tenant because it consumes the largest amount of electrons. It has its own utility, right? So it's creating its own power.
So it's a power plant.
It's a power plant.
Is it natural gas?
It's natural gas.
Okay.
Yeah, behind the meter. It'll be islanded at first, but eventually these will all be interconnected.
Yep.
But you have to do all the other things in order to make that work because the data center industry has terrible marketing for itself, right? People are getting elected or not in Virginia on their stance in data centers.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
But from a governance standpoint, we don't have federal representation. We don't have lobbyists in the data center industry. I think we're hugely lacking an entity that is managing our image, managing how we're represented federally at the state level, at the municipal level. And I think we have to get involved in these big master planned communities with the local community. And you have to speak to the politicians and the community in the way that they understand, which is jobs and economic development, which historically data centers don't really provide. So you bring in the manufacturing, you bring in the industrial park that coincides, right? Also starts to reshore manufacturing into the US in complementary things. Like we have a supply chain issue like nobody's business, right? So that's a single point of failure for us.
China makes all the phones. If we go to war with China, we're screwed.
Well, there's a transmission issue too, right? There's
storage issue too.
There's all these different things. And so as we talk about bringing in more women, diversity, bringing in education. So you partner with the local university and you bring in labs and education into this big master planned digital infrastructure park.
Man, I really don't think, like, you could be right, but I say screw the universities. I think it's us. We have to create the incubators within ourselves to where like.
But we partner with the university in doing the incubators. I think that's important because.
But we've been trying. It hasn't worked. Like we're working with a couple of universities and it's like, look, it's a feel good shit. I'm not saying we don't do it. Everything
well, then we
helps.
do it better.
But I think that we can't align ourselves. Can we agree that no industry evolves or reiterates or reinvents itself as much as our industry? And that's really because of every other industry.
Sure. I mean, we're certainly seeing, what are they calling it? The fifth industrial revolution?
Started in 2020, right at the end of COVID.
I think we've seen in the last 6 months a dramatic change in everything. You know, we talked about earlier in my beginning of my career, 100 kW was a nice size deal.
Remember those days? I remember those days too.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you remember when the first 100 megawatt meta deal was done in Virginia?
It was like nothing will ever be that big again.
They're not going to do that. They can't do that. Okay.
Gigawatt campuses now.
So now I'm building a 2 gigawatt campus in Southern Utah, right?
Isn't that crazy?
1.6 of that is going to be IT load. The rest is for the rest of the industrial park. But gigawatts, I mean, there was just an RFI that was released and it's a combination of Google and Microsoft and they're looking for net zero, 100 gigawatts between now and 2040.
I saw that.
Well, you can't. They're not going to have 10 gigawatt campuses. You can't do that. The largest power plant in the United States is about 4 gigs.
So look, this is the part where I want to make sure that we cover all the things.
Yeah, we can jump around all over the place.
Can we? Because I like to draw. Yeah. Can I scratch the paint on that stuff a little bit more?
This does not have to be linear.
Perfect. So I fucking love this whole power discussion that's taking place right now is
also your permission for me to drop F-bombs it makes me feel safe.
Let her rip, girl. Like we have to if we can't, if the words that fall out of my face in this podcast are the things that limit our ability to grow or advance this industry, then they need I'll have to go find us a better host of this podcast, right?
Yeah.
But my thing is I want to have a really healthy exchange of ideas with you, and to do that, we just have to talk naturally.
Yeah.
So, I think this power thing is what we are talking about right now on data centers, and I'm going to play a long way around the horn, and it'll take me a little time to explain it. I'm not going to try to do it right now. What we are talking about, for anybody that's listening, has the greatest impact on humanity. Mm-hmm. Okay, and people don't understand that. We're talking about gas plants for data centers. I'll explain, right? So we can no longer, it's untenable, the situation, like this technology that's emerging and the surge of adoption of AI as an example. Mm-hmm. You know, did you see the Bloomberg report that just came out a couple of days ago on the 1st of April, first day of the quarter? As a show of force, Amazon publishes in Bloomberg that they intend to spend $150 billion over the next 15 years. So it's $10 billion a year for the next 15 years at a minimum. And they're coming off the heels of, and we could agree that like Amazon they're more than twice as large as the second cloud provider in terms of how much dominance they have on cloud. And normally what happens in this space is what Amazon does. A lot of the other groups kind of follow. It's ebb and flow. There's 3 or 4 of them that are always the ones that are leading the others. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So, but Amazon's big, and they spent 2% less last year in CapEx than they did previous to that. And Microsoft spent 50% more last year in CapEx than they did in the previous year. But no, they also have maybe number 2 place in cloud, but they're probably up there in top 1 in AI, right? So I don't know where Amazon fits on the AI cloud right now, but I think everyone's really paying a lot more attention to Microsoft and the Google side of those things. But you're going to see Amazon opening up their cloud for a lot of AI providers. They're going to take capacity from their cloud, which is going to go back to a data center that we're doing. What I'm saying is the adoption rate of these emerging technologies are so staggering and high that we will no longer have, we'll will repurpose all the stranded electrical capacity on the global infrastructure in the United States until we have to go into more rural markets and build more power plants until we figure out how to get off natural gas or how we get off fossil fuels and oils and get into nuclear.
Right. And we will. I believe
Yes.
that we will. It's going to take 5 to 10 years.
I think closer to 10.
Closer to 10, but I think we'll start seeing movement in 5 years is my hope.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. I read a statistic yesterday that I think was all of the hyperscales combined are going to spend over $1 trillion before 2030.
So we're in the what's Dean Miles called it Dean Nelson called it the data center gold rush of 2024, and I agree with that 100% because the industry is starving for people and power, and we have half of our industry has been in this industry for more than 20 years. Meaning, like
we're starving for people. Right. So the statistic, I think I know the same one you do. It was Uptime Institute. It was 2021 said by 25, we'll have 300, we'll be 300,000 people short. Well, I think since 21 with the AI adoption, there's even more need, right, for jobs and talent. And we have so few people going into the trades now. Right. So we're seeing that as an issue. I think
that's why I'm trying to harvest as many from the military as I can transition.
Which is fantastic. I think we know the grid cannot support the growth. We also know that over 80% of the new generation in the interconnection queues is intermittent renewable power. You have to support that with something else in combination in order to be your primary power source. So over 80% of what we're seeing in the interconnection queues that's coming can't be primary power for a data center.
Because it's not a balanced microgrid? It doesn't have enough storage.
It's solar, it's wind, it's intermittent renewable.
Okay, so it's the storage is the problem in that case.
Right.
So we could have a great sunny day, but we only have so much demand that day. We can't store the solar power, so it goes away. It's useless.
Right. So I think natural gas is the answer.
1,000%.
It's not the permanent answer.
You're right. It's the Band-Aid until nuclear comes alive.
It's the bridge, right? Yeah. And there are different ways with combined cycle and with utilizing vertical farming and all different kinds of technologies to reduce the CO2 emissions, right? So we're going to look at that as much as possible. But is it net zero? No. Is it the permanent answer? No. But what I see
is it progress.
It's absolutely progress. And it's so funny. I think 6 months ago when we started E3 and we started this project and I started talking about natural gas, everyone was like, no one will do that. The hyperscalers would never agree to that. 6 months. And everybody's like, where are you? What's going on?
Yeah.
And you hear lots of people talking about natural gas. It's not just me. It's Joe Cava at Google. It's lots of different influential people. Christian was on your podcast recently. He was talking about it. Peter Gross, who's on our board, he's been talking about natural gas, and he's certainly talking about hydrogen. We know he's on the board at Bloom.
He's on my board too. Dude, he's the godfather, right?
He is the godfather and also the kindest, sweetest, most lovely man. I enjoy Peter so very much. And
He's
anytime
fantastic.
he spends time with me, I feel privileged.
Yeah, he always has a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge for us. Why don't you tell us what you're doing now, right? Because now this really dovetails perfectly into what it is you're doing. So E3 is the name of the company?
E3 is the name of the company.
Okay, and what's the E3?
So it goes back to, we could call it ethos and economics and energy, and
oh, really?
Those are the three. We've toyed with a few different things. There's three of us.
Okay, dude, is Novak with you?
Novak is, hi Sean. He is actually now CRO of Tech Fusion.
Oh, okay.
So in his previous role, we had partnered with them and talked about giving them part of the property for the modular data centers that they were doing as really, really quick and easy answers for getting data center now.
Sean is, I went and did a Spartan with him in Chicago. He went and raced with the pros and then came back and raced with me to teach me the right technique to do the moves in the Spartan because I was going and doing a beast.
Yeah, and he was probably drinking whiskey until 4 a.m. and then got up and did it.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
I'm surprised he didn't go in the military. Yeah, quite frankly, he should have probably been in one of the special warfare communities, I'm guessing, because he's got something wrong upstairs, but in the right way.
Thank God. I think.
In the right way.
And I've said this many times, I think most of us in this industry that are pushing really hard have something wrong upstairs. I think we're all a little off balance.
Outlier. It's like the Island of Misfit Toys.
To be in this industry, you got to be just a little bit off, I think.
You got to have an edge. gotta have a chip on your shoulder, a little bit of grit. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
So tell us, so that's the name. E3 came from that. There's 3 of you. So who are the other partners?
So my CEO, Spencer Viernes, I met when I was at Digital. At that time, he was working as eBay and PayPal's lawyer, and he was negotiating the eBay PayPal split. So I was sitting on the other side of the table negotiating the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure split.
Sure.
Within Digital's portfolio. We kept in touch for a long time. He came to me when I was at Oracle last year. And said, I'd love for you to be on my advisory board. I'd love, your thoughts and your input here. And as we kept talking about it and I learned more about what he was doing, I was like,
I want in.
Can I just come do this with you? He's like, yeah, that was always the point,
I like that. The Trojan horse idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we started this, it's evolved tremendously
so
since when we started talking about it a year. But
so
we
E3
also
started before you got there then.
Yes. In Spencer's mind. And Dave Sessions is also with us now. Dave has a long history sort of in and around the industry. He ran digital commerce for Walmart. He built a ton of B of A's data centers way back in the day. And then
What's his name?
Dave Sessions. And most recently was actually with the Gates Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he's in charge of strategy and capital markets and everything for us. Spencer is our CEO and I'm Chief Commercial Officer.
So you get, by the way, congratulations. Sounds exciting. So what is like the mission of the business or the purpose of the business?
It is just what I was talking about with the master planned digital infrastructure parks. So the first one that we're working on is in Southern Utah. It's just outside of Cedar City. And it's a bit of a unicorn because all of the different pieces that I was talking about kind of line up, right? So
how far is it from like Salt Lake City? Is that where you fly into to get there?
So you could fly into St. George, you could fly into Salt Lake, you could fly into Vegas. Frankly, you could fly into Phoenix. So the other
How long is the drive?
Beautiful part of it is it's within 200 miles of all of those big data center markets.
Why Utah? Why Southern Utah?
There's nothing there.
Including power.
Well, there's no power in Utah. If you talk to Rocky Mountain Power, you're years and years away
That's what I'm saying.
from
Why
power,
there?
and all their generation is out of Idaho, and so trying to even get the transmission down into is going to cost $1 billion.
So that's the natural gas play then.
That's the natural gas play.
That's the primary and the backup.
It is the primary. We will eventually interconnect to the grid. But we're also building out about 7,000 acres of solar. So this particular part of Utah, Elon Musk did a study a few years ago at looking like where was the perfect place in the world to put solar, and this happens to be it.
Oh, okay.
So there is already an existing solar farm adjacent. So there's fiber that's already there. There's fiber on one side from the 15 and on the other side from the rail. There's a 36-inch gas pipe that we're going to be tranching off of.
Relocating?
No, just
tapping into
part of
natural gas. How big is it?
It's 36-inch.
Got you.
Which I think is,
pretty massive.
The big.
Sure.
I'm still learning all this stuff about gas. So I come from data centers, right? You want to talk about UPSs? I can do it all day. Generators, and which we're clearly moving away from. And I think on our site, in fact, there will be no gens.
Yeah, you guys are leaving diesel and going natural engine, right?
Yeah.
So what is the E3? You guys own a piece of property down there?
We own 650 acres.
Okay.
The 650 will be for the data center anchor tenant. So we can get about 1.5 gigs of data center there along with the power plant. There's an adjacent 650 acres that we'll be taking for the beginning of the industrial park. There's the 7,000 acres that we're going to be taking for the solar plant. But there's the ability to take even more beyond that. If we wanted 20,000 acres, it's very attainable there.
So what were some of the, not the challenges, but like, obviously there's so many things, giveth with one hand, taketh with the other. When you go and you do it where you're at, did you find any challenges in the labor market? Is it like Utah? I built a, data center in West Jordan. And I felt at that time that building a data center in Salt Lake City, Utah was just as hard or competitive of getting trades or laborers to lean in on you as it was in Virginia. Because the difference in Virginia is there's 1,000 jobs and every trade's like, tell me why I go park my 150 electricians under your program for a year when I go work. Like they're not going to they have the tail wags the dog in Virginia when it talks about the trades. They may remove GCs from programs, but the trades normally always stay. And the trades are really performing a lot of the work, right? So when I was in Salt Lake, I had a real hard time finding enough trades that had any appetite to do it or experience in general, right? And did you find that market gave you enough resources since you're within a couple hundred miles from all these other NFL cities, it sounds like, where you could draw talent pretty easily?
Cedar City has had manufacturing for generations.
Oh, okay.
So there is some of that. Is it going to be able to support everything that we're doing? Absolutely not. We're going to have to be drawing from other municipalities for sure. I think that there is a university there that we're working with. We are working with the local government, who we bought the land from, has been multi-generational. Utah, and very, very much supportive of this. So there has to be community engagement in order for this to work. Oh,
for sure, right? Especially in a state like Utah. So community is very much on board and in support. The local airport, you wouldn't think, but in Cedar City, I guess one of the first airports Pan Am built. So it has a full-scale runway. That's awesome.
So it has all of the different elements that's required for it to grow exponentially and become much more important and a much more affluent and really drive some economic development into the city.
So you found this piece of land. You guys have the first 650 acres, and you already have a master plan of some kind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So how far down the line, how old are you guys, E3?
6 months.
Okay. No, look, exciting time. I mean, look, in this industry, in that space, especially with the product that you're creating, there's a lot of pent up demand for large scale master plan communities to serve the hyperscale, right? And this is going to be the standard. What you are doing and what like Quantum, and there's a few other groups that we've talked to where the developers are trying to run the same thing, that will be a new standard, right? And we're dealing with a couple different developers that are, I mean, it's smart. It's the way to do it.
Yeah, but hopefully taking the entire ecosystem into account, right? So we've thought about data centers needing power, fiber, cooling, people. Yeah. But we also have to work with the supply chain. We also have to work with the local government. And we also have to work with the education piece. We also have to work
with the community impact.
All of those different elements have to be involved, and the manufacturing piece, because we're not going to fix the supply chain if we don't start talking about the manufacturing. We have to talk about.
How far are you guys from the Intermountain Electric manufacturing plant? They do a lot of modular data center containment builds now.
I don't know.
You're probably closer than you think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that you can do Intermountain Electric's based out of there. I think they just go by IE now, but I used them early on in my stages as they were like modular power solutions, but MPS was so backed up forever that you couldn't get stuff out of them for months. So another group emerged, and I was like, they didn't know. We just talked them into doing what that other group was doing since they were logistically so close. But that supply chain part, I mean, you don't own the market, and having that as a challenge, every company has that challenge regardless of the market, right? Supply chain's volatile at best. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath out there right now. And again, I think it's another example where a lot of the folks in the supply chain, especially on the engine side, the tail wags the dog again. They kind of almost in many ways get to determine who's going to win certain projects sometimes based on who they're going to award their equipment to.
Absolutely. And one of the other ways around that with natural gas is being able to have an output at 13.8 kVA so that you don't need.
You stay medium voltage the whole way through?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you guys are going to do?
Absolutely.
So a natural gas ring gen bus probably, and then you guys just tether everything from it?
Combined cycle, N+1 design. You know, there's some wiggle room depending on who the anchor tenant ends up being.
So give us the whole commercial officer pitch. Give us the whole, I mean, like it's just us girls talking, but just like, I don't need the whole thing, but like, what do I want to know? What would I go tell my clients? How can I help you? How about that? What would I be able to do? What information do I need to where I could actually help you when you're not in a room?
I think that it's everyone starting to have this conversation. It's talking about the bigger picture, right? It's the fact that we're circumventing some of the supply chain by doing the medium voltage. And so I can get this out and in production and have electrons delivered by the end of 2026.
Okay.
Right? When I was at Oracle, we were talking 27, 28. Whenever we were talking about anything. A lot of what I was doing was in Europe, but there is no power in Utah
That's
anytime.
why they're, yeah.
Right. So
And it's not like they
but
have
not
a
just
massively
there.
saturated labor force either.
No, but we're not just talking there. So I do have the Cedar City project. It's the first piece of land we've purchased and currently own. I've got 7 other projects all over the US that are in pipeline that we're going to do the exact same thing. I just don't see anybody else that's executing at this scale for a natural gas power plant this quickly. Everybody's talking about it. As far as I know, and as far as whoever I'm talking to, we're the first people that actually have everything in motion to have it completed within the next 36 months.
36. It's going to take 36 months?
I think it'll take 30 months.
Is it broken into phases or some shit? I mean, how do you...
Yeah, so
why does it take 36
absolutely.
months? Yeah.
Well,
You have to run all the modeling maybe or something and have some studies done?
That's all been done. No, I think it'll take about 28 to 30 months to actually build out the power plant, build out the pipeline that's going to take it from where it is now onto our site. I pad that by 5 or 6 months because obviously there's going to be some time between when all of those shovels go in the ground, between when someone makes the first reservation for the power, right? So we're building a little bit on spec, but not completely.
What are you doing on spec? Core and shell, or are you guys putting in like infrastructure for like duct banks and stuff like that? Or
I'm not building a data center.
Yeah, you're just building. Well, I'm saying you're going to have to still put in conduits and pipes and duct banks.
Right, you got to do all the site work. Right.
Yeah, so you're doing the site work.
We're doing the site work.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're building the power plant. We're doing the site work, and the biggest piece of that, and I think the longest lead item for us, is making sure that we have the power from the 36-inch pipe all the way delivered out to where we are. It's about 10 miles, and so that process is being begun right now.
I wonder how much that costs per mile. How much is it per mile for fiber right now? $3 million? 2 to 3?
So we're looking at about $50 million.
Okay. All in for the entitlement of the campus.
From getting the gas.
Just the natural gas is 50.
Just getting the gas built out, the 10 miles.
Okay,
that's $50 million.
That's $5 million a mile.
But when we're talking about the scale of this, $50 million
it's a rounding error compared to what you're going to be doing.
Is insane.
Especially if you own those engines. Are you going to own these engines that are going to, I mean, I know you're not building the data center, but will you own the power plant? Are you own that asset?
So we actually have a partner that we're working with. We're working with Our Power.
Of course. I just did a podcast with their COO.
Who's COO?
Their COO?
Yeah.
At Our Power?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Right now, then I'm going to the John Bacher.
You're going to Miami.
Yeah.
See you there, buddy?
Are you going too?
Yeah, I'm speaking on data centers.
All right. Well, I'm going. I just heard about it for the first time.
COO. So Jeff is the CEO.
Don't know him. The Coast Guard Academy grad, and for some reason right now his name escapes me. I only met him a few times, but a really nice guy.
So Jeff and Robin Starcher started the company.
Jamie, I think his name is.
Oh, Jamie.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Jamie's amazing. He's coming out to our site with Jeff at the end of the month.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about using their stuff? We're
absolutely using their stuff. We're working in partnership with them. And that will be ultimately theirs and ours. Eventually we'll buy it from them.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to be working with them. Robin's fantastic. Jeff is brilliant. They know what they're doing.
I like them too. We're trying to provide them service so they could, we could be the labor that installs their power generation plants and does maintenance and all that stuff on it.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we're trying to do that right now. In fact, we will be. Overwatch Energy Services will be started where we're going to be helping build these power plants for a lot of our customers too.
So you're going to be building my power plant.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to be doing. I mean, we want to be doing just that, right? Because the continuity advantage that you would have is the same people that are doing that are the same people that can build the data centers for you. And right now, traditionally, I mean, more than half of my work right now, more than half of my work is enterprise end users. Mm-hmm. The other half are the operators. But it's not unusual for us to be operating in a data center operator where we're building everything from the PD all the way up to the substation. Mm-hmm. And then I'll have a fiduciary responsibility under another contract to represent their tenant, their tenant picked us indifferent of there's programs that we're going to win with large hyperscalers where we don't care if they go in Vantage Cyrus One. It doesn't matter where they go. We're still going to go help them deploy that. And then there's operators where it doesn't matter where they go. We're always going to help them deploy that. So we're sticky enough now where we're being asked to do more power plant stuff. And it just seems, I mean, that's, for what we're building, let's say we're building data centers at $8 million a meg, those cost like $1.2 to $1.5 million a meg. And it's a lot easier to deploy those distributed power generation plants than it is to build all the MEP density that we do on these data centers. But it makes a lot of sense from a continuity perspective to use the same team to do the others. Same reason why we do the upstream and downstream of the PD with the tenant,
right?
Is because we can ensure schedule, right? Because if you're going to mobilize another team on top of another team, then you're going to have, I mean, there's a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of risks that are injected in that. But if you could maintain that momentum, it pencils out more, economically efficiently as well.
That makes sense.
So our power, you were saying?
Our power is definitely going to be helping us in Southern Utah with that build. We're super excited. I really like working with them.
I like those guys too.
Yeah, they've developed a really good partnership with us. We're super, super thrilled to have them on board.
I'll see you in Miami, it sounds like.
That's fantastic. Novak will be there too.
Is he really?
That's right.
God, I wonder if maybe I get him a few cheeseburgers and outrun him a day or something like that. He probably, I just got to get him an eating disorder. Maybe that'll help me.
No, he eats McDonald's and
yeah, of course he does.
No, it's fine. We were at PTC and we had a meeting and I'm like, where are you? And he's like, I'm at McDonald's. I'll be right there. I'm like, how do you?
Yeah, that's how he rolls. He has a tapeworm, I think, too.
It's possible.
Yeah. Maybe he's pregnant. I don't know.
He definitely has motivation, though. I'm always impressed. That guy.
Very impressive.
Up and exercising no matter what he did the night before.
Yeah, I hate that about him.
We all do.
So, all right. So natural gas. So this is what you guys are doing. So you guys
This is what we're doing, but we're doing the whole plan for the industrial park as well. So, right.
So including what? Like all the fiber duct banks too?
So we're looking at working with a different developer. We have a couple commercial developers that we're talking to and haven't solidified yet for the next phase, which is the 650 acres that we have under control but haven't purchased, that are going to be adjacent, complementary, vertically integrated manufacturers and industry, so that it works with data center, right? It supports and understands data center. But because we have all of that, it brings more of the economic development, more of the jobs, more to the conversation than just the data center.
No, I hear you.
So all of it. And we see this being replicated because, like I said, we're not going to have 10 gigawatt campuses, at least not that I can see until we get into nuclear.
But there are 1 and 2 gigawatt campuses being discussed right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Nevada and stuff, sure.
Absolutely. But I see this being replicated in order to create an interconnected series of microgrids all across the U.S. along the major interstates and creating corridors for data center and industry. All up to 15, across the 95, down 40.
Sure. What else do you see then? That's a pretty interesting, tell me what the long play then, or share with me whatever else you feel like sharing with us about E3.
That's the long play, is to be able to replicate this and do it anywhere. Be able to do this in Africa, be able to do this.
Okay, so you are going to go outside?
We probably won't go international, but we do see
the model working.
The model working anywhere. And I think that natural gas is an answer to where they're burning wood. I think natural gas is an answer where they're burning coal. I think that there's a lot more that we can bring to the table, and understanding that electrification is the fundamental part of supporting a community. I mean, yes, there's a digital divide and it may not have fiber, but they need to have electricity in order to be able to have industry.
Sure.
So I see this as important as a global issue. And you talked about us revolutionizing. I don't think that we consume so much of the power that we're going to change the world, but I do think the amount of power that we consume is going to change how we do it, and that's going to push the rest of the world. I think that we are going to educate the rest of the world and all the other industries on how they need to manage this problem.
Yeah, I take it a step further. I agree with you. I mean, most of the things that we're even talking about originated here anyway, right? Most of these social media companies and large cloud providers. So we are the first mover in a lot of these things, and the first one through the wall. Sometimes is always the bloodiest. So we're always the ones with the unintended consequences that happen with emerging technology, right? I think that there's, you talked about the fifth industrial revolution.
Yep.
Right. And have we talked about the first few, the first four, and all the unintended consequences that have come before the fifth?
No.
So let me paint with a broad stroke then real quick, if I could. So, in the first industrial revolution, 1760 on, we gained a lot of things in that first industrial revolution, including a new nation, 4th of July, and George Washington, and a new country. We got the cotton gin, which changed the fabric of society literally, right? And then we end up getting our first dose of power. Every industrial revolution is predicated on what we earn or gain from power, right? So the first one was steam engine, locomotive train, right? The second one, so we had a little bit of a break between the first and second industrial revolution. There was some innovation. We, put a patent on the combustion engine, but we didn't really convert that or turn that into a motor vehicle until the second industrial revolution, about 35 years later. And in that time, right, in the first industrial revolution, there's a lot of things that emerging technologies gave us, right? Think about it in our time, emerging technologies for us. I'm probably older than you, but I was born right at the cusp or the beginning of the third industrial revolution, where, a lot of technologies came out in the third, but a lot of really crazy shit came out in there too, like the convenience of food, or what we call today fast food. Mm-hmm. How often do you eat that? Have you ever?
Oh, yeah.
Because when you didn't know any better, we go like, why not? But when you realize like, that's probably not what I need, and you educate yourself more, you become having a healthier relationship with the food that you eat, and you're not going to, that's no different in human
Don't get me wrong. The double happen. No, I know, but In-N-Out Burger happens.
There's one right down there. Well, you live in California and you have that. That's the law. Yeah. You're supposed to eat that.
I twice a year.
That's it? You deprive yourself too much.
No.
Once a quarter.
I mean, I also live on the beach in California where we have access to taqueria, where Mexican food should come in tinfoil and drip down your arm.
I think the best Mexican food I've ever had is Southern California, not Northern California. It's even better than in Mexico, in my opinion. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just was raised on it, and that's my palate, maybe. But in the first, we get stuff. We get great things. We got power engine, and think about how much the train has changed the fabric of society, right? But we also got urbanization and pollution and shitty, horrible working conditions for people. I mean, it wasn't until the second industrial revolution where Henry Ford created a 5-day work week that was 8 hours a day, right? And we began really learning every unintended consequence that's introduced in one industrial revolution kind of gets corrected in the second. Think about the Goldilocks, too hot, too cold before it's just right. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens in these industrial revolutions, right? And the second was, we got the automotive machine. So we got the automobile, plus we got electricity. We had the current wars between AC and DC, right? And power, again, was we got a lot of other things. We got insulin, we got vaccines,
antibiotics.
Yeah, we got the Colt revolver, what were the unintended consequences of that, But we got a lot of really cool things that helped society. But then we had at the end, the second industrial revolution ended at the birth of World War I, and then we went into Prohibition, then the Great Depression, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And at the end of that, 1969, the third industrial revolution started, and that's where I was born. And that was a time where I was talking to another guy on our last podcast where I'm like, I remember looking at commercials where they said 4 out of 5 doctors recommended Camel Lights because they were healthier for you than other cigarettes. Right? Do you remember those days?
No.
Marlboro? No. Yeah. See, so I'm older than you.
Not by much.
But at the same time, I also lived long enough to watch from a technology perspective, the third industrial revolution. We were able to harmonize energy out of nuclear because we created nuclear weapons during the Second World War, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got compute power. We got AI, actually, was the first time it came on scene. We got a lot of cool technologies in the third industrial revolution. We started putting people on the moon. We mapped our own genetic DNA. And then we used some time to fix some of the unintended consequences from the previous ones, like some of those medicines could have been bad. In our time, social media was published. In the fourth industrial revolution, social media was really prevalent. How many people killed themselves from that? How many people were bullied as a byproduct of that? When you just don't know what's going to happen when you introduce technology to society. Right?
Yeah, I think there's flaws and there's been consequences of everything. I think we're headed in a direction that some of that will be regulated. But so much of the fourth industrial revolution, you can't regulate without regulating people's civil rights. It's gotten really sticky and complicated.
So I do agree that it's really sticky and it's really complicated and it's going to be really challenging. And I don't have those answers, but I will tell you that I think the technology that we're building is going to help us. And let me see if I get to the end of it. So the third industrial revolution ended at 2000, the dot-com bust, right? The fourth started immediately, no breaks. And on that one, that's where we really saw, in the fourth industrial revolution in 2000 on, is where we saw all the emerging of new technologies, including cloud, but AI, AR, VR, autonomous driving vehicles, drone technologies, what else, right? But the fourth one was really power, right? So again, we got compute power, we got nuclear power, we got electricity power, we got steam engine power, but every industrial revolution gives us power. And this is the fifth industrial revolution that started in 2020, right? At the end of COVID. And that is designed for us to have a more harmonious and healthy relationship with the technology in our lives. And it's already working for people like me. I spend a lot of time trying to find balance all the time. But I will tell you, the thing that's really interesting is we're struggling to put this technology platform together, right? Because the AI that we feel that we're going to be able to use will be healthy and harmonious for us. And I think that it will. I think that we're very careful and very mindful on the facts that the people that are building AI are humans. Some humans are pieces of shit. Some don't even like humanity, right? And there's going to be flaws, but all the large language models and content that's been created by person will be uploaded into this thing. And at some point, it'll start generating its own things. Do you agree? Its own ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
And we like that. We know that that's going to help advance science and medicine. You know, they'll be able to maybe cure things that we haven't been able to cure yet because it's doing long division faster than humans can, right? And it's doing it at record paces. And I think that the technology, the AI itself will arrive to that, to where we'll just look at it as a monster that tells us statistics. Hey, if you do that, your odds of survival will be X. An existential threat to climate is this. If you don't make these changes by this date, by this year. And I don't know when that will be. But there will be a point in time where there's something that we all would probably find confidence in and use it as a validation tool against what we do. We handicap technology against what we do as humans all the time.
Are you afraid of Skynet?
I'm not.
I'm not either.
I'm not at all.
No.
So I think that although humans are creating this and we are flawed people and we have the ability to inject flaws into the code, I think that there's also ways to roll it out in ways where we can. That is such a scary topic that we do have more oversight than some of the things that we were building in the past. I don't think anybody gave a shit what we were doing when we were building cloud. We were just like, get more of it as much as you can. But now people are like, someone stand by the outlet and get ready to unplug this bitch if this thing gets crazy on us real fast. But the thing that's beautiful about AI and people don't understand is it's handcuffed and it's dependent on humans because it needs a massive volume of aggregate power and it doesn't exist unless we put it online.
100%.
So that's what you and I are in the business of doing now, is building not just the sky for the cloud, but the technology power engine behind AI, right? And that's really the industry that we're helping be a part of. So page 2 of this industry will be picking up where the luminaries left off as they begin trends, maybe sunsetting into policy. Like, we do need some people that can hold others accountable in this industry.
100%.
And that governance is...
We need some governance. We need some legislation.
Policy.
We absolutely do. I don't know where that's going to come from. Spencer and I have a few ideas. But I
it's
think
emerging.
I think it is emerging. And I think that the powerful thought leaders in this industry are starting to come together more and walk away from feeling that there is a competition constantly.
Are you hopeful for the future with all this stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take a collaboration that we're not seeing yet amongst the people that are making the big decisions.
We haven't evolved there yet.
Yeah. But I think that collaboration will inevitably
it's all about the adoption rate.
Yeah.
It's a tipping point, right? Malcolm Gladwell calls it the tipping point.